Alright, everybody, welcome back to yet again another 2022-2023 season preview. We don't got much of these left, but we're moving on today with the Boston Bruins, a team that when you look at them, interesting things definitely are coming for this hockey team. 100%. You've got so many different ways you could look at this team. There's so many different ways with so many injuries involved in it as well. Not looking so good for Boston as of right now. Definitely not. You look at the Bruins last season, they went 51-26-5 for 107 points. They scored 255 goals and scored 200 and only let in 220, sorry. They didn't score 255 and then let in, yeah, okay, all right. I'm just going to stop talking. And then they lost in round one against the Carolina Hurricanes. And their leading scorer was Brad Marchand with 32 goals, 48 assists for 80 points. And then your goaltender who played the most games, it was actually a tie, but Swayman played the most minutes statistically. So he had a 23-14-3 record with a 2.41 goals against average. Obviously, last year for Boston was a good year, nonetheless. But then came the playoffs, and we really saw the holes that this team kind of had in that roster 100%. And it really is getting worrisome. Well, what happens next? And especially with some of the injuries that are going on, and we'll get into them in a second here. Not looking so good. Really is not looking good in Boston right now, 100%. You look at your departures and your acquisitions, starting off with your departures list. You have Eric Haula, Curtis Lazar, Josh Brown, and Anton Bleed. No really huge eye-opening players, I would, except for, I guess, Eric Haula. I guess he could be that one player that's like, ooh, that's a bad player. That's a bad player to lose. But really, apart from that, there's really no big players who really pop out to you as eye-opening. That isn't a bad thing. Now, if you want to go into injuries, there are injuries. I mean, I guess you can't really call those departures because they're still on the team, but I mean, still. And then obviously, for your acquisitions, you have David Krejci, Pavel Zacha, and then Keith Kincaid as well. Kincaid will probably be your third-string goaltender. Zacha probably a third line, or maybe actually honestly a top six player with some of the injuries they have. And then obviously David Krejci as well, your new center. He came back from the Czech Republic. They wanted him to come back, and Krejci finally just said, you know what, just so y'all shut up, I'm going to come back. I mean, maybe that's what happened. I mean, you had Pastrnak asking him in like the Czech Republic being like, do you want to come back? It's just so random. But anyways, you look at this team's projected lineup, and this is why I want to speed up in things here, because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this, because there is a lot of things going on with Boston right now when it comes to injuries. So starting off here with the top six, you have Brad Marchand, who's going to be out until probably December. I've heard maybe a Thanksgiving timeline, but probably December. Then you have Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Taylor Hall, David Krejci, and Pavel Zacha. Obviously, losing Marchand's not a good thing. And it's not like the Bruins, it isn't their first time experiencing something like this. I made a video all the way back in 2020 when the Bruins had some injuries heading into the 2021 season. It looked worrisome, but the Bruins came out. So that's why I kind of believe that I think the Bruins can hold out, even though despite losing Marchand and McAvoy and Grzelcyk, we'll get into them in a little bit though, despite losing those players, I still think they can make the playoffs and they still can sustain success until those guys get back. I definitely believe that this team is good enough, and this team has proven in the past that they can do that. Absolutely. And the only problem is, and the only issue that I have is that was in 2021 with completely different divisions. And this year, they're playing in a competitive Atlantic division where 6 of the 8 teams in that division, maybe even 7, you could argue Buffalo for one of those teams, could make a push for the playoffs. So, I mean, there are so many ways you could rank the Atlantic Division. It's not even funny, and it's just completely outrageous. And, I mean, we'll see what the Bruins can do, but losing Marchand's definitely a big loss, but I think that they can definitely hold on to it. Anyways, looking at their bottom 6 here, you have Jake DeBrusk, Charlie Coyle, and Craig Smith. Then you have Trent Frederick. I just started bugging there for a second. And then Jack Stunica, and then Oscar Steen. Then you have Nick Foligno, Thomas Nosek, and Fabian Lysell as some additional players. Now, I will say this. With some injuries happening, Lysell will definitely get a chance to play in the NHL. He will definitely get a shot to prove himself. He's probably Boston's best prospect as of right now. And I definitely think, well, yeah, he definitely could play well coming out of the gate from the World Juniors. He played really good there in Vancouver as well with the Giants. He looked really good. So we'll see what Lysell can do in the NHL. But apart from that, I love that bottom 6. Very underrated. You got some solid guys down there. Coyle, Smith, Stanika and Frederick are still young. Steen is also pretty young, showed some signs of positivity last season. We'll see if that can carry over to this season. But overall, I like that. I like that bottom six. The Bruins are one of those teams where, like, they're one of my teams that I like a lot, and I think they have a very solid roster all around, and I think they definitely have some potential to play really well, 100%. You look at their defense here. You have Elias Lindholm, then Charlie McAvoy is going to be out for who knows. And then you have Matt Grzelcyk, who's also going to be out for who knows. And then you have Brandon Carlo in your second pairing. Then you have Derek Forbort and Jacob Zaboral. And then you have Mike Riley, who I've heard may be injured. He might miss a few weeks into the season, but I've heard rumors that he's also going to be back. So we'll see. And then obviously Connor Clifton there as well. Yeah, that is a pretty pummeled defense, 100%. You take Grzelcyk and McAvoy out of that lineup. You have a Lindholm Carlo first pairing, and then Lindholm Carlo first pairing, a Forbort Zaboral second pairing, then a Riley Clifton third pairing. That isn't ideal. That isn't ideal. It's something they can definitely work with. It's definitely not ideal though for the Bruins. Absolutely not. And I think that you look at that defense, you take those two guys out, it's significantly weaker. And it's significantly more worrisome whether or not they're going to be able to overcome what they've dealt with the past couple of years. And it definitely is going to be an issue losing both of those guys. 100%. Absolutely. And you lose your top defenseman in McAvoy, and you lose a solid second pairing in Grzelcyk. Then you lose your best forward in Brad Marchand. You have three of probably your best players just out of the roster. Gone. So that definitely caused some questions of whether or not Boston can have sustained success, and we're going to be asking that all the way up until the season starts and when we finally get our results of what actually is going to happen for this Bruins team. You look at your goaltending. The one thing I'm not worried about is Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark as your goaltending tandem, then a Keith Kincaid as a third-string goalie. Swayman, I'm just going to bring this question out here. I had Swayman. I think Swayman could have a breakout season. Many people would argue last year was Swayman's breakout season, but I think taking the full-blown starter role, even though Ullmark can also play starter, I think Swayman will definitely have a breakout year and play really good for Boston, and I think he could be the X factor that gets the Bruins through this trouble. Definitely, 100%. Now, the other question is, I've been referring to it throughout this entire video, can the team hold on despite injuries? Now, as I mentioned earlier, they've done it before. They have absolutely done it before, but in different circumstances. So that's something you got to take into consideration when you look at this. You got 3 players out, and that's not even including if whether injuries happened during the preseason, injuries we don't know about, or injuries that happened during the regular season before these guys get back. So really, I don't know. I think they could. They still have a solid roster overall. You take Marchand out of it, it makes it weaker. The defense, it's not ideal, but I think it's still manageable. And that could just be me being a biased Bruins fan because I've really liked this team over the past couple of years. But if I'm being honest, I think this team can hold on. It may be difficult at times, 100%, but I still think they can hold on and fight to the end and definitely play good. And if Marchand comes back by Thanksgiving, I think that's all they need. I think really all they need is someone like Brad Marchand to just shoot up the offense and just make this team really good scoring wise again. And that's kind of what Marchand did this past year. He was absolutely electric. He was insane. He had another controversial season, but he's still insane. Offensively, he played amazing. But anyways, you look at your point meter or your point projections according to the Hockey News' fantasy guide here. You have David Pastrnak leading the way with 77 points. You have Marchand in third with 63. You have Taylor Hall in fourth with 54. Jake DeBrusk and Taylor Hall in third with 54. Then you have Jake DeBrusk and Charlie Coyle in a two-way tie for fourth with 46 points each. So obviously there, Marchand getting 63 points, I definitely think it's possible. Especially if he comes back by Thanksgiving, he could just absolutely light up the league. We saw it last year where he became an absolutely electric forward for Boston. I believe it could happen again 100%. And I'd be excited to see it happen because I just love watching Marchand play. Your sleeper or your bust is actually Hampus Lindholm. 2 key defensemen will miss the start of the season, which means plenty of minutes for Hampus Lindholm. Lackluster year for the Ducks, dragged down his production, but increased time on ice means he becomes a 30-point threat again. Absolutely. With McAvoy being out of that lineup, that really puts a lot of pressure on Hampus Lindholm to be that number 1 defenseman. Absolutely. And I think that with some of the team that he's surrounded by, let's face it, it's a better team than Anaheim. I'm sorry. It's definitely a better blue line. It's a better team overall. I definitely think Lindholm will be able to hold on and definitely hold down the fort with the Bruins and McAvoy's spot and definitely play well until McAvoy gets back. And as of right now, I haven't heard any really time for return for him as of right now, for anybody who's wondering. I've heard things about Marchand. I've heard things about Grzelcyk as well, but I haven't really heard much about McAvoy, so that's kind of worrisome. But I've heard McAvoy probably, best case as of right now, probably back by January. So you're going to have to really wait until then to get your number one defenseman back, but we'll see there. Your cup odds are 37-1 in favor of the Boston Bruins here. So Sweeney has done some of his best work at the trade deadline as opposed to his laundry list of failed summertime free agent signees. He's debated much of Boston's future draft capital and prospect cupboard. However, he's hoping Montgomery can do better developing prospects and interrogate them into the lineup. If the plan doesn't work, there could be a rare Boston GM change in the offing, and that could be really interesting there, obviously, if Don Sweeney gets fired. Blow up the hockey market. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you look at what's going on here. Obviously, Bruce Cassidy got fired by Boston. It caused an absolute meltdown for Bruins fans, and rightfully so. That really surprised me as well. I was like, whoa. I did not expect that at all. And they brought in Montgomery. I still trust Montgomery. I still trust this team. But overall, I'm not entirely too sure if Cassidy or if firing him was the best way to go, if I'm being honest. Now, the other question is, do they make the playoffs? In 2021, I said yes. In 2022, I said yes. I'm gonna go through the bold prediction. I'm gonna say yes again. I'm gonna say yes. I think this team is good enough to make the playoffs. They got the roster to do it. I mean, they have the numbers. The really only issue that I could see them not making it is if, Marchand, McAvoy, and Grzelcyk don't come back at the timeline that they're expected to. Maybe Marchand doesn't come back until February. McAvoy misses the whole season, something like that. If something drastic happens and Pasta gets injured or something like that, then maybe they will make it, but even then I still think they have the chance to. I think they're just that good of a hockey team. They're just missing some key pieces they're still a ways away from a cup 100%, but they're still a very good team nonetheless, and I still think that they're going to be very entertaining to watch over the next couple of years. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. For personally, I really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below if you are new. And anyways, thank you all for watching. We have about, I think, 3 more of these left. The Flyers, the Flames, and the Stars. But yeah, anyways, thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.